All right, for the sake of time, let's get started. And we know that people have be joining the webinar as well as here in person at IBG. Thank you all for attending in person or online. As we've put these meetups together, we're trying to give you more information about what you already own in GP, and then also today how you might outgrow some of the solutions that are in Dynamics GP, and you might want to extend the solution a little bit further. Darren Hunt, one of our accounting consultants, is going to start off with showing you all the things that you get out of the box with GP. And then Mark Polino, Brian Caslow, and Dave Deary are going to go and show us some advanced solutions that you can use to grow into and take it a little bit further. So certainly today's subject about all things reporting, budgeting, and then so business intelligence solutions that complement GP. So without any further ado, if you're online on the webinar, you can ask a question in the chat box or here in the room as well. I think you have a point for getting some questions at the end as well.
Yes.
Great. Thanks, Darren. Take it away.
All right. So again, I'm Darren Hunt with Integrated Business Group. Thank you all for coming here to our office today or joining us on the webinar. And I am going to tackle the challenge of trying to roll through the reporting and BI or business intelligence that is available with your typical GP licensing, as opposed to possibly some of the additional products that if what is in GP doesn't quite meet your exact needs, might be something that you consider as well. So there's a lot, particularly in GP 2013, that covers reporting, budgeting, analysis, those types of things. So it's definitely going to be a nice survey of those different aspects, and then some of my colleagues will expand on that on the back half of the webinar. So we'll get going. So here are the key things that we're going to cover, at least in this first half, is that we're going to cover Report Writer and how Microsoft Word also works with Report Writer, Management Reporter, Smart List, and a new feature to Smart List called Designer, which came out about April of this year with GP 2013. And then we're going to jump into some of the more sophisticated, I guess might be a good word, tools that you can also use to do a lot of analytics out of GP. So that would be things like SQL reporting services, or there's a series of Excel-based reports which you can refresh and get data straight from GP. And then there's also a piece of functionality that is under the umbrella of Business Analyzer. There's actually a lot to do with that, and you'll see why that's going to be part of the end of the wrap-up. And then I'm going to transition through Excel-based budgeting into some of the things that the rest of my team is going to talk to you about. So that's kind of the roadmap of what we're going to cover here in the first half. So let's see if we can do that. So I'd like to start off by just kind of saying there are some things in GP that I tend to think of more like what a fortress or a fort might be for you. When I think of a fort, I think of, okay, this is something that has stood the test of time, most likely, has been built with a very specific purpose, and you know, no pun intended, but you pretty much could consider it bulletproof, because the things that these tools do, they were designed very specifically, and they've been in many of the versions since the beginning of GP's inception. So over time, they've been ferreted, and they are very, very dependable. So that's where we're going to start at. We're going to jump into Report Writer and how the new iteration of Report Writer with Microsoft Word is available for use in GP. So just as a refresher, what I have up here side by side is a document, report, whatever you want to call it, on the left-hand side that was generated from what is technically called Report Writer. So pretty much any time by default that you hit the print button in GP. Usually what is going to be the engine that is generating that information is Report Writer. And so the item on the left is just a snippet of a purchase order that comes from GP. The one on the right is something that came out in one of the more recent versions of GP, which is the same document. It's a purchase order, but it's actually rendered in Microsoft Word. Without getting into details, they actually work hand in hand, believe it or not. I just wanted to kind of present them as a starting point because Report Writer has been around since pretty much the beginning of GP, and the reports that come out of Report Writer, very, very dependable. Those are your trial balance reports. I mean, your day-to-day accounting back-end reports and even some of your operational reports are generated by Report Writer. So that's really kind of like the beginning of when we start talking about what do you get with GP in terms of reporting and analysis. So when we kind of like look at those, some really brief key points to think about is that Report Writer itself, very dependable because it has been around for so long. In terms of how quickly the information is rendered to screen, typically that is going to be a very brief amount of time for it to generate. Microsoft Word really kind of piggybacks off of Report Writer in the sense that you now have the ability to add color to those documents. You saw that I had like a logo and other formatting that pretty much you can't do with just straight out Report Writer. The documents, though, become very easy to share now that they are in Microsoft Word because you can save them, email them, post them up to SharePoint, whatever it may be that you use in your business. But the Report Writer side of things, that was one of the weaknesses behind it, is that not so easy. Yes, you could, but not so easy. So why do we not just stop there with those two tools? Why can't those be the only thing that we use for GP? One of the things is that, yes, you get a great deal of different reports out of the box in the Report Writer layout or with Microsoft Word, but in terms of modifying them, in terms of linking them to other data sources that you have in your business, especially if it's data that doesn't live inside of GP. For example, we've got a decent number of customers that are in the restaurant business. Quite often they will have a point-of-sale system that they rely on heavily. That point-of-sale system is not sitting in GP, so you've got data in two different places. And a lot of times you might want to actually look at a consolidated report that is combining both of those data sources to analyze food costs per number of patrons or something like that. Well, the number of patrons is not sitting in GP. So how do you do that? Report Writer in Word might not be the best place to do that. So those are just some of the things that you kind of maybe run into when you start going to the next level. So that's where we're going to go next. The other tool that is often used by anybody who first starts using GP has been FRX for financial reporting. FRX had been around for a number of years, and then when GP 2013 came out, there was a version of Management Reporter that came out that now is the de facto standard for financial reporting with GP, meaning that it is the successor to FRX. FRX is not being developed anymore, so Management Reporter is where you're going to turn to. The nice thing about Management Reporter, though, is that your staff should feel really comfortable when they start using MR, is what we call it, because the same concepts in terms of rows, columns, trees. If you've ever used FRX, you'll know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the Amazon. They will look very, very familiar. So in terms of training costs of getting to know the new application, very, very little. As far as what Microsoft did on the back end, it's much designed be based on a true database format and some other things that your IT staff, as well as possibly internal audit and other people within the organization will appreciate. And then one of the last things that it added was this concept of a library where information can be stored in a repository. So what does this all look like? For those of you who have used FRX before, here's a couple screenshots of a row and a column from Management Reporter. So it should look really, really familiar to what you may have seen in FRX. So naturally, users are going to be able to pick it up really quickly. That's a nice thing. In terms of what MR can do, it still does a lot of the same things that FRX did. You've got the ability to drill down on reports. You have the ability to now do a lot more with your fonts and the control over what does that display. That was one of those really, really challenging things in FRX in terms of making the presentation be something that was board quality. Now it pretty much has the ribbon and operates a lot like all the other Microsoft Office tools. So it's easy to bold and highlight and all those kinds of things. But then they didn't stop there with MR. They actually added some other things as well. So it's not just put a new face on FRX and give it a different name. They added some things with regards to collaboration and sharing. You can take a report in Management Reporter and actually have a running set of comments running in a separate pane. Imagine just write down a little bit of white space down a margin of your report. And so those comments can go back and forth between different viewers of the report, which is kind of nice because not only is it going to stamp it with, okay, who put the comment and when did they put it and that kind of stuff, but when you go to maybe bring up that report 6 months later, you can jump to those comments and they're all nicely contained within the report so that you can hopefully, get your memory thinking, oh yeah, I know why that, line item was X number of dollars over budget, or, why we're having such a good year, those kinds of things. So that's nice. Not something that you could have done in FRX at all. And then from how you could share that information, they added the ability to send links in email and any type of client that would support the web links. That's what would allow you to, if you knew somebody who you wanted to look at this very specific report that was run on this very specific time, you could send them that link, and it's secure, and they could actually pull up exactly what it is that you're looking at. You can have a phone call, you can be face-to-face, whatever it may be, and you're both looking at the exact same thing. So very, very nice in terms of how that is managed. There's two viewers that make this happen. So in FRX, you had the report viewer. So when you would generate a report, it would come up the screen. That we still have that feature, but now Management Reporter has basically, come up to the 21st century here. So you can view it in a web browser. Same report, same information, just a different way of deploying it. IT will love that again because now it's one less thing to really maintain since everyone should have a browser on your desktop these days. So that's another nice feature of a Management Reporter that you did not have with FRX. Let's see, am I missing anything here? I think the only thing I was going to do, let's see if this works. One more thing I wanted to show you. There we go. What I'm going to do is briefly give you a feel for what the web version looks like here. Let me just slide it over. So this is a Management Reporter report that has been actually generated in the browser rather than in the actual client viewer. So it's easy to work with in terms of you can still drill down even in the web viewer. and you can do other things like downloading this to Excel, all those other things that you're always able to do with FRX in terms of using it for more than just the basic report. Those things still happen today, so you haven't lost any of that capabilities. So the last thing we will talk about for MR is how the changes happened with it that made it something that is more collaborative. So FRX, if you wanted to share the report with somebody, usually oftentimes I would see people export it to Excel and then email them that file, and then they would save it to Excel, and before you know it, you've got all this sprawl that's happening actually behind the scenes on your network with files getting saved, duplicated, as well as, to be honest with you, that's a bit of an audit risk, right? You've got information that is quite likely all about the core pieces of your business, whether it's financial or operational related, and it's just sitting out on the network somewhere and it's not secured. So what MR does for you is it gives you a repository or a library. So when you generate a report, it goes into this library, and that's where it's all controlled. So it'll still come up the screen and whatnot, but if you ever want someone else to look at it, when they access the report, really the library is managing it on the back end and is checking to see, okay, is this person a valid user, yes or no, and if so, then it opens up the report. You're able to come back to this library as well and see version history of the report, all in one consolidated place. So it's not scattered across, the shared drive that someone has created and named lots of folders. This is organized in a single location, so you can see what was last month's final P&L, what was the final version the month before. All those things are time and date stamped. So that's I think it's pretty nice. So that's really kind of like the high-level overview of what's happened with FRX and how MR has added additional features to it that you didn't have before. Last thing I'd say about MR is that with GP 2013, the licensing changed on it too. So today, if you're on FRX, your licensing definitely would have some sort of limit over the number of users technically that should be using the application. And with MR, you actually end up with an unlimited number of viewers. So that means that anybody in your organization that you've actually given them an access account to see this information, they now have the ability to see it. So that was a nice bone that Microsoft kind of threw your way when they came up with this. So MR, we'll leave that behind. Another thing that is in GP that has been there for quite a while is Smart List. Anybody here use Smart List at all? Yep, I see just about everybody nodding their heads. I love Smart List. I actually was in your shoes at one point in time where I was actually using GP, and I found Smart List to be extremely helpful. Why? Because you as the user are able to say, I actually need this information to be sorted in this way and to only include this group of customers that are whatever, right? You get to design all that kind of stuff. You don't have to really learn any type of report writer. You don't have to submit specific IT requests to have that information designed for you. So Smart List is a wonderful thing. So we won't spend a whole lot of time on how Smart List works. All I wanted you to see is that, okay, this screenshot that you're looking at is where I had gone into my sales series and just said, show me all my customers. And so this is the information. This is the information that I get. So that's nice. But what happened is that with GP 2013, there was the addition of something that's called Smart List Designer. Has anybody heard about Designer? Not quite as many heads I saw turning on Designer. So Designer is what allows you to take Smart List and customize it to connect to other data sources, mainly through SQL views. you to make these yellow folders that you see here. You can now make your own what are called smart list objects. And so they may have fields now that you never could get access to before. Because if you have used smart lists for maybe more than a week, all of a sudden you go, I love this, but how come I can't get the field that I see on this window into the smart list that I'm looking at right now? And in the past, what that required you to do was to possibly buy what was called Smart List Builder. So that was a purchase. Smart List Designer is not a purchase. Smart List Designer is just as long as you're on a specific version of GP 2013, you actually get Smart List Designer to let you do many of the things that Builder did without having to buy Builder. It doesn't do everything that Builder did, so I don't want to mislead you, but it does an awful lot. So the one that I see a field on a window in GP, why can't I see it in Smart List? You can now do that. So here's a screenshot. I apologize for the squintiness, if that's a word. Is that a word? I don't know. I just made it up. But what I wanted to show you is at the top is essentially the exact same thing I was showing you on the previous screen. It's a smart list query of my customers, except what I've now done is I have said that I want to look at my customers with their credit limits as well as what their current balance is, and then give me a variance of the difference between the two. So I created this field called variance. Has anybody created variance fields in just Smart List? Yeah, you can't, right? So there's one of the things that you can do is you can start doing calculations off of fields that are already in GP. So I took my and compared it to my customer balance and said, show me all the people who we have actually overextended credit because they may be a credit risk, right? I mean, you know, we make decisions to lend them credit, but those are probably going to be the people that we want our collections group to stay on top of. So that was one of the things that I was able to do with this Smart List Designer. So over on the left, you will see, let me see if I can highlight this a little better. Over on this left panel here, this is Designer at the bottom. That left panel will basically give you a list of all the different tables that you have in GP. So I went and grabbed the one that said Customers and expanded it, and then you'll see that I have customer number, customer name, and then a bunch of other fields. So I just checked off the ones that I wanted, and that began the name of my. Did a calculation, which is simply just take this field minus this field and give it a name. I gave it a name called variance, and then now I have this object. So Designer is just like one of those additional pieces of the puzzle that you're able to utilize to access information from GP. It all just depends on what you're looking for, whether you start out with a report writer or maybe you end up going to Smart List or maybe even some of the other things that we're going to talk about. So Smart List, I love it, but now we're going to go even further. Here we're going to go into what's called SQL reporting services. So SQL reporting services, I find it really hard to describe SSRS sometimes because it can do so many different things. It's not just a reporting tool. It's not just a graphical tool. It can do a whole lot of things all in one. So this is a SQL reporting services report that actually is included with GP. I think this one was included back starting in like GP 2010. And it is obviously it's a view of the United States. But what it's done is it's actually got data behind it, color coding the different states based on some particular criteria. In this case, it was by their sales year to date. And so that's nice that that I can see something like that. Well, this is also real-time information. So every time you open the reports or hit refresh, you get a current version of that. There's a bunch of other ones that come with GP as well. So if you haven't what's called deployed SSRS, something that we'd be more than happy to talk to you about. There's a couple hundred different reports, charts, and KPIs that come with it that do a lot of the same things you see here. Let's see. Let me do this. Turn off the laser. Pull this exact report up. So SQL Reporting Services uses, again, Internet Explorer in a browser format. It is secure, so not just anybody can open up a browser and get to the information. But here's what's nice about it. Not only can I see that, the darker the blue, the more sales that we have with these customers, but if I don't want to look down in the bottom right-hand corner and see the legend, I can take my cursor and hover over the different states. And now I'm getting real-time data as far as, okay, what are my year-to-date sales for Wisconsin, right? Come down to Florida. Man, we're not doing so good. Step it up, guys. Any of these states, it now basically renders a sub-report, if you want to call it, which will now tell me, okay, that $455,000 that I was showing you just a minute ago, now I can tell you who those customers are that are generating those sales. And maybe I, want somebody to pick up a phone call and, thank these guys for their business and see if there's anything else we can help them out with, and, just keep, the cash machine going, right? That's kind of, where we're trying to go with this. You'll also see that some of the information in here is highlighted in blue. Those are hyperlinks. So you can now drill back into GP and you can pull up that customer record or that salesperson and see what their phone number is, so you can call them real quick. You can just go crazy with SQL Reporting Services in how you can link information. This is another one of those tools, though, that can pull sources besides GP. So Management Reporter, that's just really looking at your general ledger data in GP. SQL Reporting Services, remember that example that I mentioned earlier about restaurants and their point-of-sale system and how you've got information scattered all over your organization. SQL Reporting Services can tap into lots of other data sources, other databases, things like that, and can combine that information so that you can actually see a 360-degree view of what's going on in your business. That makes sense? So that's why I like SSRS. One more example of SQL Reporting Services. So the one you saw a minute ago, graphical map of the United States. Here is another SQL Reporting Services based report that is completely different than what I just showed you a minute ago. This is actually a AT trial balance report that, this is actually pulling core information from GP. So I really just kind of wanted to give you a feel for the polar opposites of the type of presentation layout that you think that you can get with this. So to show you some of the interactivity that this will give you, let me run this report here real quick. So I'll pull up my trial balance. Let's just sort it by vendor ID, and then we'll just view it. So the reason why I wanted to show you this is actually, again, multiple reports built into what looks like a single report here. I have very summarized information when I'm looking at it from this point of view. So I can see for that first vendor, Ace Travel, I can see their aging buckets going across, but I can't really see the details behind the aging that's happening. So instead, I can use these expansion buttons, and if I click on that plus button, what's happened is that view has now exploded from a summary view into a detailed view. So I can actually see what are the invoices, what are the payments that have been, that make up those balances that I was just looking at. So I think that this tends to be a bit easier on the eyes. It's showing the PowerPoint. Well, I'm not sure why that is. So I'll just talk through it. So the view that you're seeing from the PowerPoint is just a summarized view, but there are little plus signs scattered across the report. And when you expand those, what it does is it actually shows the details behind that report so that you can go from a summary view to a detailed view, back and forth, you know, so that you're not actually having to generate two separate reports. It's I don't know, just easy to use. The report writer version, you know, to go back to where we were talking about at the very beginning, that would have taken two separate reports to do that. And the report in SSRS, again, is real time. Every time you hit the refresh button, it automatically pulls the data so that you always have a current view of what's happening. Okay. One more, Excel refreshable reports. Anyone dabbled in using Excel with GP much? So for those of you that haven't, earlier I used a term called deploying reporting services. That's really just kind of a catch-all phrase for when GP is installed, you have the option to turn on and turn off lots of things, right? Well, one of the things that you can do is you can choose to deploy two sets of reports. One of them are those SQL reports that I was just talking about. The second one is a set of Excel-based reports. And again, they are connected live to your GP database. What's that?
You know, like pivot tables.
Yep. Yep. So since it's in Excel, all the things that you've been able to do with Excel in the past, you will be able to continue to do. So charts and graphs, slicers, all those kinds of things that you can do, you can still piggyback off of the great things that Excel does by itself, but the data is now coming from GP and it's coming real time. So on the PowerPoint here, here's an example of a list of customers. You'll see that it's actually formatted in what's called an Excel table. There's actually a technical term that Excel uses for a table as opposed to just something that is just highlighted with alternating colors. And there's some things that come along with that. All the Excel reports, there's a couple hundred of them that you can deploy, include all these features that are in there. They all look very similar, but different data. I've shown you that in Excel, there's a button that says refresh. So every time you hit that button, that's the thing that makes the report, again, real time. So it's not static information. I'm going to try this one more time, and if it doesn't work, then I won't keep opening other stuff besides PowerPoint. Okay, so Excel. This is that report that, well, this is one of the reports that I was talking about. So the one I showed you a minute ago was just about customer names, addresses, phone numbers. This one is more from a sales order processing point of view. So this is showing invoicing from the SOP module here. So some of the things that I was mentioning to you is that this table that GP, the Excel reports are designed in, what it does is it gives you things like filters. So here I'm able to, if I really only wanted to look at a couple customers here real quick, I can multi-select them, and I immediately have a list of all of my, in this case, open orders, whether they're invoices or fulfillment orders, for those customers. And that was very fast, because a minute ago you were looking at, I don't know how many, thousands of records. And then if someone right this moment were to have, say, entered a new invoice, and I wanted to make sure that that's included in my information, it's as simple as either going to your refresh button, or even right-clicking and just doing refresh, and it just that fast pulls in whatever the new information that's available. So there's a whole lot involved in here. I mentioned a minute ago that you can take advantage of all the features that Excel still does for you. So at this big, massive list of information, what do I have? I don't know, probably a couple thousand rows in here. But because it's Excel, I could say, you know what, I would like to see maybe just my top, let's just make it top 5 invoices that are out there right now. So still all real-time data coming from GP, but now I've taken that list and made it a little more meaningful. Let me make this, I don't really care about that column, so let's just hide it. And then, you know, you can do something like your, what else is good here? Let's do some conditional formatting, I'll throw some data bars. You know, you can do all those things that you've been able to do in Excel all along, except that you don't have to start from scratch. You've got the raw data coming from GP already built for you. Now you just go in and you just add the charts, graphs, whatever the features are that you want in GP, and from here on out, I save this report. Now I got all that other wonderful analysis tools that Excel lets you do. So that's, I think it's pretty awesome. I know Mark has done some really cool stuff with dashboards and GP as well. So this is very basic. He's the man. I would talk to him, get some more cool ideas about what you can do with the stuff that you already have that you may not even know yet. So that was Excel reports. So I realized that I just ripped through probably 6, 7, 8, 9 different places where you could go in GP or even outside of GP when we talk about things like Excel to get information that you're looking for. And it kind of seems like, man, this stuff is great, but I don't necessarily kind of know how to put the things together to figure out where I really should go when I need to do this and when I need to do that and things like that. So I just kind of thought that this was a good example of, this is beautiful. I'd like to be there, but I just can't quite, you know, grasp what's really available for me there. So there is one more thing that is relatively new in the GP space. It's called Business Analyzer. And Business Analyzer, to a great degree, ties all of these tools together so that you almost could consider it, dare I say, like one-stop reporting. So that's, you know, I didn't want to completely scare you with all those things that we were just talking about. So let's spend a little bit of time talking about Business Analyzer. Business Analyzer actually lives, for the most part, both directly inside of GP as well as in a standalone application that some people may like because it's very, very mobile friendly. It's also just very, very easy to use. So if you are a GP user, let me talk to you first about what Business Analyzer does. So on my GP homepage, I've actually enabled on the right-hand side of my GP homepage, I've enabled Business Analyzer. So that map should look really familiar to you. That was the map that I showed you a few minutes ago. So what you can do with Business Analyzer as a starting point is anything that you can design in SQL reporting services in GP using Business Analyzer. And this is customizable for each user. So what you decide to put on your homepage is not what the person sitting next to you decides to put on their homepage. So it's very, very user-friendly and customizable, right? So let's see here. And it's not just one single, you know, picture that you put there or one single report. It's actually kind of a carousel. So you can scroll around through it. And since I was so successful with Excel, let's see if we can do this real quick with Business Analyzer, because there's a couple things that have a bit of wow factor with this. So I'm going to bring up my GP homepage, and I will bring it to the screen as I get logged in. Okay. Hopefully everybody can see that now. So here is that same report, right? Depending on what you chose, if I hit my little scroll arrows, I can have a carousel running round and round and round of the things that are most important to you. Because they are SQL reporting services based, again, they're running real time, right? This isn't static information. You're probably getting really tired of me saying that, but I just think that that's one of those things that people really like, is that I don't want to know whether I'm dealing with yesterday's data or not. So, so that's kind of the idea behind this. Now, there's lots of things that you can do with this. I'm not going to go into a bunch of them, but one of the things that is a little fun to show is something I wanted to show somebody real quick. I can just click copy, and let's say that I don't know. I'm just gonna paste it into Word here real quick. Just Control V, and now you got that same graph that you can send to maybe somebody outside your organization that they don't have access to your data, but maybe this was something that you wanted to share with them real quick because it's a snapshot. So very, very portable and easy to share. So inside of GP, the rest of Business Analyzer type information, let me show you where that lives before we go to what you can do with it when you're not in GP. On the left-hand side of my, whenever you go to any of the series besides your home page, you have on the left-hand side what are called your navigation lists. And instead of having all those different things that we've been talking about so far scattered across your network, maybe, what has happened is Microsoft has organized them so that starting with this first item here that says report list, and then moving my way down, I now have a way to navigate to all of those things that we talked about. So the report list, that's going to show me everything we talked about. So whether it was a report writer report or whether it was an Excel report, when I click on report list, I get a massive place where I can search for, show me the report that was called year-to-date sales by territory. And it would go find it, you could double click it, and you could launch. So that's everything. But if you don't want everything, if you know that it was maybe an Excel report, then I can just single click Excel reports, and it'll do the same thing, except it's going to just filter my list by Excel reports, not show me my SQL and my report writer and my other things like that. So now if I put my cursor there, double click, it would launch the Excel report for me that's listed there. So I'm trying to bring all this together so that it doesn't seem like a big haystack, right? So that's where I'm going to leave you as far as how you could possibly access this information from GP. The tie-in to this, though, is that there is now a Windows 8 application, Windows 8 app if you want to call it, that allows you to also see this information in a consolidated place. So yes, it'll work on PCs, laptops, no problem. If you've got lots of mobile devices, you can also use the Windows 8 app, and you can see the same information in what I think is a very, very nice presentation. So let me take you to that app. And switch screens. Yep. Question?
For the business analyzer on mobile applications, do you need a full GP license?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So the question was, if you are using Business Analyzer on a mobile device, whether it's a Surface or whatever, do you need a full GP user license? And I'm being told that no, you do not.
You don't need a GP license. I don't believe you need any additional license for just a business analyzer.
If anything, you have to be user and
Yeah, it actually falls under the same licensing as SRS.
So the specific answer was that it falls under the the same licensing that you have for SQL reporting services. So if that answers that question, there you go. Let me switch screens here. So that hopefully I can pull up the actual app. Are y'all seeing the Business Analyzer app now? Not what. This is what's going to be hard. Yeah, except our audience here in person can't see this. See if I can do it on both screens here real quick. I apologize for that. Not sure how to duplicate it across two screens. Well, I'll just do real quick with the group online, and I'll switch it again here in the audience. So for those of you that are on the webinar, I just pulled up the main page for the Business Analyzer app. And so you can see some things like charts and graphs that are pulling real-time data. And as I am just scrolling with my fingers left and right on my mouse pad, you'd be doing the same thing if you were on a tablet or other mobile device. You can see all kinds of key performance indicators like what are my liquidity ratios, what is my total open AP. I can even access, for example, my management reporter reports that I chose to publish to Business Analyzer. So the last thing I will show you before I switch it to our in-studio group here is that there are different roles that you can give to people. So everybody doesn't have to see the exact same information through Business Analyzer. So I have roles here for my accounting manager, my CFO, or maybe my sales manager. So if I switch over to someone like my sales manager, they now have very specific information that is focused on what we need them to be worried about or monitoring, and not the other things to do with the business. So just wanted you to see that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat that as best as I can. And if I can switch it over to the big screen here. Just a minute. And go. Actually got it over there. Everybody may be seeing it now, for all I know. So this is Business Analyzer. Let me start back where I was, just so it makes sense. So here's what you would see when you start Business Analyzer. Very graphical, very easy to comprehend the information that's being shown to me. Mainly because it's using SQL reporting services quite often as what's being rendering the information that you're looking for. So I've got things like charts and graphs here, interactive, where when I hover over things, I can actually see the information that's behind there. If I wanted to know more information about it, I can click on it. It now, depending on how I've designed this, it's jumping to other information that may be more meaningful to me. So if I want to see it in just a stacked column chart, I can flip it to where, I've got all kinds of ways to view the same information. Now if I go back, I can scroll. So imagine, you're just scrolling on a tablet, and you can see page after page of information. I've got red lights and green lights telling me, okay, is this something I should be worried about? Is it something that is within tolerance? At a glance. A lot of good at a glance information. So now here's some more charts and graphs. And not to make you dizzy, but last thing I mentioned before was that I can also surface a management reporter report here. So under this tile here, when I choose that, I chose to have for this particular role, whoever this was the CFO, maybe I want him to have this full departmental income statement. But if I had somebody else, maybe I only want them to see their marketing department so they could see a different version of the same report. So remember, the whole reason why I'm even bringing this subject up was that Business Analyzer is what is allowing me to take a lot of the tools that we were just talking about and kind of drive them together in one place so it's easy to find. Okay? Let me just roll.
Is that possible to do this type of a app connection via a third-party hosted GP server?
So the question, let me see if I can repeat the question. The question was, if I have my GP environment in a hosted environment, can this happen? So, I mean, pretty much as long as you are authenticating to that environment, you should have no problem doing that.
Or you've got it hosted in the cloud. There is a whole kind of security setup. The toughest part about the Windows piece is getting the security setup done on the server side to be able to pass all of this through. Other than that, it's relatively straightforward.
So
yeah, you should be able to do that.
Yeah. So if you couldn't hear the answer, the question again was, you know, if I'm in a hosted environment, you know, if my GP environment's in the cloud somewhere, those kinds of questions, you know, how does this work? And I mean, bottom line is that, you know, this is, you know, checking through Active Directory security, you know, who you are, you know, if you have access to information, and if so, then it presents the information. So as long as whatever you're using, desktop, laptop, you know, mobile device, as long as it is able to authenticate to your environment, then there may be, you know, a few little technical challenges to get you there, but once it can actually authenticate who you are, then it should be able to return the information that you're looking for.
So the question from the web from Doug, how do we get into Business Analyzer?
So Business Analyzer, just like everything I have shown you so far today, is part of your GP licensing. And so when GP is installed, there are checkboxes, for lack of a better word, that enable certain features of GP. And then as well, when we were talking about SQL reporting services and Excel reporting services, you can choose to deploy those types of things. So the bottom line is, if you don't see it now, then there's probably some configuration and maybe even some, you know, additional installation of GP code to enable it. So it's not an additional purchase. It just may be a function of running through some additional installations.
So the Windows 8 version of Business Analyzer is available in the Windows Store, but until the connections are done to set up the security on the back end, it really doesn't connect to anything. You can pull it up and you can play with it, but there's some stuff that has to be done on the server. If you don't have Windows 8 at all, there is a desktop version. It's not as pretty, but there's a desktop version of Business Analyzer that runs on Windows 7 and Vista. Also runs on the desktop of Windows 8 if you don't like the Metro app. That's included with the GP install media.
Yeah.
So there are, you don't have to have everybody on tablets to be able to use Business Analyzer. You have lots of options.
Yeah. So real quickly on that, just to repeat that clearly, the Windows app that I was showing for Windows 8, that's actually available for free from the Windows Store. So that's where you would actually be able to download and install that. And then there's obviously some settings in there that would need to be completed in order to connect it to your GP environment. If you're not using Windows 8, there is a standalone Business Analyzer application that does a lot of the same things that you just saw, maybe not quite as pretty, but you can still pull in the same type of information. So that is another option if you're not on Windows 8. And then the GP stuff that I was showing you at the very beginning for Business Analyzer, that's part of probably just an installation from your, hate to use CD anymore because we really don't do much installations from CDs, but from your main GP software. Yes, one more question and then we got to keep moving.
So there's that comes with GP, but does it come with GP in 2013, or is it already there?
There is a version of Business Analyzer prior to GP 2013, but there were definitely changes to it. So you may not see, if you're on GP 2010, for example, you may not see what you just saw today. And GP prior to GP 2010, you would not have Business Analyzer at all. Okie dokie. So the last thing that I have before we do some transition here is that I wanted to spend just a minute or two on, let me get back here. I wanted to mention budgeting, because we really haven't talked about budgeting yet, and some of my colleagues are going to talk about it in a minute. My focus was to talk only about the things that everybody has the ability to get as part of their standard GP licensing without having to purchase additional modules either from Microsoft or elsewhere. And so if you're doing budgeting outside of GP and you want to get started, then one of the places that you can start is using what's called Excel-based budgeting. And it's very simple, but if that's something that you're not doing now and want to get started, maybe this is the right shoe for you, I guess I would say. As simple as the spreadsheet that I'm showing here, where you have running down the first column of your spreadsheet, you have all the account numbers you want to budget. And then running across the top of the spreadsheet, you've got however many periods you have in your fiscal year. 12, 13. I hope you don't have 13 or more. I feel for you. But and you just put in a single number in the intersection of the account number and the period that you want to budget for. And once you complete that spreadsheet, you basically browse to it from inside of GP. It sucks it into GP. You give it the name of the budget you want to call it, fiscal 2014, forecast 2014, Rev 1, whatever you want to call it. And from that point forward, you can do comparisons, actual versus budget, either directly inside of GP or from something like Management Reporter, where you can pull in that budget information from Management Reporter. Okay? So it's really the starting point for budgeting if that's something that you'd like to start looking at and haven't done so in the past. So thank you for hanging in there with me. That was a lot of information to cover real quick, but hopefully I kept everybody on time here. And I'm going to hand it over to Jeff.
Great. Hey, thanks, Darren. Great job. So again, our focus with everything that is out of the box with GP, we're going to transition, and Mark Polino is going to go real quick, and then Brian, and then Dave after him. So we're going to touch on a couple areas real quick in GP. But let's give Darren a hand. A great presentation. Rolling along, but if you got that on there, that's great. All right, so Mark Polino's up, and now you've seen how to budget with inside of GP. We're going to show you some tools that are better.
Hi, everybody. How y'all doing? Good? Everybody kind of relaxed, and it's hot out there. You don't want to go out there. So, all right. So Excel-based budgeting is actually really cool inside of GP, but it's a little like your first car. So you get Excel-based budgeting, and it's cool because you can budget in Excel, you can upload it into GP, and you're going, this is so much better than budgeting, one line at a time. It's really kind of cool and fantastic. But then after a little while, you realize, this is my first car. There are some things that I'd really like to change or update or improve. And so eventually you're putting in a new stereo and some spinner wheels, and you're bondoing the trunk so that it doesn't leak anymore and all those kinds of things. Well, Excel-based budgeting is like your first car. Full circle budgeting is like all of that work you did to really make it work for you. Full circle budgeting is not a pure budgeting tool by itself, but we really think of it as an enhancement to Excel-based budgeting. So there's a bunch of things that it can do. It uses the GP budget tables and reporting, better worksheet selection. We'll talk in detail about each of these a little bit. Enhanced security. It's not expensive, and it's got an audit trail for updates, errors, and changes. So let's take a quick look. Full Circle uses the GP budgeting tables. So if you've already got budgets in GP and you used Excel-based budgeting and you have Management Reporter set to look at those budgets, you don't have to make any changes to your reporting. Full Circle Budgets is going to upload that data into the same tables. You're going to be able to run the same budget to actual reports and be in good shape. One of the big differences, though, is rather than having to have a fairly rigid format of my Excel sheet must be in this format, and if people mess with them too much, it sort of screws up the format, and now I can't upload it. And you got to adjust it, manipulate it. Full Circle lets you actually map where your items come from. So in this case, for example, the year's coming from way up there in column A1. The period is in A3. We've got all of the accounts down the left, but there's breaks in the middle. They're not contiguous. We've got subtotals in the middle of this thing. And it's still going to import back into GP. You can't do that with regular Excel-based budgeting. It just won't let you. What you actually do with Full Circle is when you set up your budget, you come in and you map it, and you say things like, this is what my accounts are actually in these particular locations in my spreadsheet. They sit in this set of cell references, or my year exists in this cell reference. So that makes it a whole lot easier to either take an Excel sheet that you already and use it, or to make a sheet that might work better for your organization, rather than being forced into the kind of rigid setup that comes with a GP sheet. A couple of other pieces are things like enhanced security, because the GP sheets, basically, you're going to pull down the sheets you want, you're going to send them out to people, and they're going to send them back in. If you want better control over what's going out and what people can change and not change, Full Circle Budget lets you better lock down those pieces without having to sort of learn how to do all of that in Excel. It's also pretty inexpensive. If I've got this right, Jeff, maybe you can help me if I say something wrong. But the basic package is about $2,000, and the full enterprise package is like $4,000. So somewhere in that neighborhood. It's not crazy amounts of money. The reality is, honestly, during budget season, for a good number of you, between the weight gain you get because you're not eating right, all the extra drinking you do trying to get the budget right, you can pretty much spend that kind of money and just get a better budgeting solution. Then you have a better life, and we're all said and done at the end of it. It also makes it easier to put out a bunch of spreadsheets and then gather it all back in and be able to put them together. That's always the challenge. I send Darren a spreadsheet, Brian one, Dave gets one, and then they all send me these spreadsheets back, and I got to cram them back together and shove them up into Excel-based budgeting so we can have mistakes all along the way. Individual sheets, putting them together, Full Circle really eliminates a lot of those kinds of problems. And so that's really kind of the basics of Full Circle budgeting. Anybody have any kind of specific questions you want to ask around? Oh, didn't mention the audit stuff. Sorry, let me back up one. The audit trails and updates are important too, because what happens is I send Darren a budget, and in the process, Darren puts his stuff in, and he's a really bright guy, but he's not all that conscientious sometimes. And so he makes a mistake and deletes a bunch of stuff that I've put in there. And so it comes back to me, and now stuff that I thought was locked is no longer there. Well, I can actually, with Full Circle Budget, even if I allowed him to make those changes, and when I realized he screwed it up, I can go back to a previous version, pull that out, plug his numbers in, and upload the corrected version. So I'm not having to, if someone makes a mistake, I'm not stuck. One of the challenges with Excel-based budgeting is as companies grow, they're getting these spreadsheets from all different places, and sometimes someone sends in the wrong version, maybe they've made 3 different copies, you're processing multiple versions, and it's really easy to say, okay, Chief, with yesterday's date that is marked final, or the one marked final, or the one marked really, really final, which one is the one that I really want? So being able to figure that out becomes a challenge. It's much easier to manage variations in versions with full circle budget as well.
Mark, I think you were correct with some of your numbers. Basic edition for 3 users is about $2,000. Enterprise is unlimited 4. If you do detailed blended and budgeting, that's an option for those.
Okay, and at some point we'll budget what people spend on poor eating and drinking and put all that up against it and give you an ROI. But it might be different for different people. All right, so let's talk about Dynamics budgets. If Excel-based budgets is your first car, and Full Circle is all the enhancements you do to really make that first car cool, I managed to avoid painting flames on my first car, but something like that. Dynamics budget is really a step up from that. It's that really comfortable family sedan. It's not super pricey. It's really flexible. You can strap a couple of kids in the back with car seats, and then next week you're putting the seats down and putting loads of mulch in the back to haul and do the backyard. Really, Dynamics budgets fits that kind of mold. It is a standalone app, so it is not Excel-based. We'll kind of walk through these as well. But it is a standalone app, and there are plenty of options if you have far-flung operations, if you want people to kind of connect all of those. There are options to deal with that in Dynamics budgets as well. Full security, activity log-on, detail roll-ups, lots and lots and lots of budgeting features. The CEO of this company is a friend of mine. He's been in the GP space for a long time. Frankly, he was responsible for budgeting at a pretty large company. They had massive amounts of budget, and he just wasn't finding the budgeting tool that he wanted to really be able to manage that. So at some point he left and started the company. So there's really some deep budgeting experience behind this product. All right, so again, even though it's a standalone app, it writes back to the GP tables. So if you already have actual versus budget reports built in MR, FRX, any of the other tools, it'll read that, so you don't have to change your reporting at this point. It is an application, so it installs on your desktop just like any other application. I don't know, it's kind of cool looking. It looks like an app. The place where we bump into questions about this is, okay, so maybe I have an operation in Alaska and Fiji. How do I get their budgets in? Because really they're really not on our network, or we just bought this company. Well, Dynamics budgets runs fine on Citrix or Terminal Server, if that's what you want to do. And then they also have an agreement with a company called TS Plus. This is a really light kind of terminal server application. They've got a really, really dirt cheap license that they roll in with Dynamics budget. So if you have operations all over the globe that are disconnected from your network, there's still options to be able to make this work. Dynamics budgets uses full security single sign-on. So you're looking at Active Directory. Folks who are in your network, it's going to use their network log-on. If you're logged onto your computer, you fire up Dynamics budgets. It goes and sees who's logged in and then grants you the appropriate permissions. So there's fewer logins to maintain. You're not having to manage a whole bunch of people forgot their password for this application. And it also does full activity logging. So if someone screws something up, you can go back and undo it and fix it along the way. I talked a little bit about the flexibility. I just want to explain some of that. There are actually multiple data entry options for Dynamics budgets. So this one is kind of a full boat. I want to budget down to the, to the person, the number of staples that we're going to use, whatever, and then I want to roll that up into a budget. So maybe I've got a bunch of events that people are going to. I might have a budget for each one of these conferences, and I want them to roll all up into a conference budget. I can get super detailed as to what's going into those conference budgets and have the option in Dynamics budgets to roll all of that up and just be done. Now I have my budget. So there's kind of this really, really detailed, nitty-gritty budget entry window. At the same time, there's also a really skinny, slim down budget window. So if you have folks who are used to entry like Excel-based budgeting where it's just, boom, I just key in the pieces that I want, there's a really slim down window for those folks too. And for all of these packages, for Excel-based budgeting, for Full Circle, and for Dynamics budgets, the kind of typical budgeting things where I start with last year's budget, or I start with a different budget, or I start with existing, last year's actuals, or I start with blank, all of that's present. All of these you can do that. You can also do adjustments. So I want to start with last year's budget, but I want to add 2%, and then I'm going to go and adjust it. All of that's present in all of these packages. Kind of the beginning starting point for budgeting. If you don't have that, you really need to maybe think about building a different application instead of budgeting at this point. And then we've also got, what's really nice is we've also got approvals. So I can have people approve, I can build a budget for my department, how many people we're going to have in the department, what their salaries are going to be. All of that's hidden and can be controlled with security. And then it's really, really flexible. If there is something that maybe isn't in the product, they're pretty good with figuring out how kind of to make that happen if it really makes a difference for you. Generally, the reporting for Dynamics budgets goes through all of the GP reporting, but they are starting to build out some of their own in here as well. So rather than folks having to go out of the product, you really only work in the budgeting package, and rather than having them go out to SSRS or something else, they can actually do some of the reporting in Dynamics budgets. And it's pretty affordable as well. Certainly more affordable than some of the BI packages and some of the really large kind of budgeting pieces. So this is, again, it's that really nice middle of the road family sedan kind of fit. And so that's really where what I was trying to show you was a couple of kind of nice alternatives where we're building from the bottom up. Maybe if you're ready to come off of Excel-based budgeting, these two tend to be places that people want to go, products that they want to see, because they're nice, kind of straightforward steps up from that. So with that, I think I'm done, and I'm going to turn it over to Brian.
As we're transitioning over, if anybody had any questions about those.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to take them. And yes, no, I take that as I was fantastic and nobody has any questions. Thanks, guys.
So there's two guys you don't want to follow in a demonstration. That's Polino and Darren. And guess where I'm at. I'm following you two guys. So let me tell you what our challenges have been in business, operationally, looking at financial statements, looking at analytics and so forth. From a consulting side, we have these challenges to how do we get data quicker, faster, better, and what are our tools in the toolbox? These are ways that we think about how to get access to your GP data or other types of data sitting in your SQL server, okay? one of the ways that everybody in this room uses Excel, right? By using Excel, you've got one of the tools in the toolbox, okay? So as we think about kind of empowering the user, we have the tools available now at a very low cost that kind of give you that flexibility, the ability to adapt the kind of way the financial statement looks, the way you present it to management, the way you present it to a bank, and they have all that power built in to the Excel spreadsheet, okay? Now, there's different flavors of that. There are a couple that I'm going to show you, or the one I'm going to show you today, is they're both basically the same, but you can go in entry level with some Excel-based reporting engines that will do real-time data extraction against your database, against your GP financial data, and build pretty much anything that you can design, okay? And it's a very quick, fast way to get access to your data. The other ones that Dave will show you and other products are a little bit more high-end. In other words, you're going to have a larger investment to get into these products, but they're very flexible, okay? The ones I'm going to show you are easy. If I can't teach you how to build financial reporting in Excel in less than 30 minutes, you know, I'll eat one of my shoes, right? This is very, very easy to do. Does everybody know what I mean by absolute and relative cell referencing when you're talking about spreadsheets? Right? Most of the time I get a head nod. Okay? If you understand absolute and relative cell referencing in Excel, and if you don't understand, I can teach you in 5 minutes that also. You can build financial-based reports in Excel. Okay? So, we have multiple products available in the market for this. We all have pre-built, all of these tools have pre-built connectors to Dynamics GP. So all you got to do is understand how to use a wizard essentially and click, and you have to be I'd say either an entry level to mid user of Excel to get done what you need. You need to be able to do equal sum statements and functions and so forth. They all leverage the power of the Excel spreadsheet. We built templates for Excel. So even the entry level stuff, you have pre-built templates, so you can leverage what they already give you and then just build on it from that. The other piece that you'll see is because I can extract financial data into a spreadsheet, I can build graphic analysis off of it. And now I can start doing some real powerful things, rendering graphical BI to the end users or to department heads or to management or to the business owner because I have real-time access to my data. Okay? So, the software we're talking about today is featuring BizNet. Has anybody heard of F9? Okay, couple, 2, 3. Okay, so F9 is an equivalency to BizNet. I'm showing you BizNet today. F9 is the other tool. Okay, there's pros and cons for using F9. They're both very simple to use. Some of our customers use F9. Some of our customers are using BizNet right now. BizNet software. 5 kinds of activities. Rendering graphs. If you're spending 12 hours a month creating reports, average user, okay, using this Excel suite, you're going to be able to render reporting as many of them as you want, as quickly as you want, assuming you're willing to spend a little bit of time generating that Excel spreadsheet and starting building formulations and some columns. But you know, let's talk about the basics. Balance sheets and P&Ls. Very simple to do. So other than that, then you can start breaking down and generating graphical representation of that data after that as well, like they're showing here. Okay? The other thing we can do with these tools is you can distribute these tools through a portal. Okay? So now that I have created the Excel spreadsheet, I can now render that, and most of them have a way to render that data up to your portal for consumption by folks in an automated fashion. So by a couple clicks, I can then push that stuff up, disperse that amongst the folks within the organization. Now you have a portal-based, Excel-based reporting tool. Okay? So the delivery system is very flexible. Well, our folks, okay, let's show the 2 minutes, and then we'll, or you think I shouldn't show it all? I think it'll be hard. Okay. Well, there's a 2 minute and 15 seconds, 2 minutes 15 seconds. Really? 15 seconds. We'll skip the video. It shows you kind of how operational. I have a couple of slides after this I'll show you, and I'll just explain it to you, okay? Yep. And, I'll include the link in the email, and we'll send that out to you folks, and you just click it, and in 2 minutes and 15 seconds, you can kind of see the power of BizNet and how it works. For some reason we don't have that all under the deal. Okay, so you saw Full Circle. Full Circle uses very similar technology. So when you take a look at cell referencing, right? A1, A2, A3, A4, right, in the cell reference, you'll basically put parameters in your spreadsheet. So if you look at the very far corner, you'll see A1 equals the 2 company, okay? That would be your database company in GP, right? The next one down is the year I'm reporting on, 2014. The next one down is what period am I reporting on, or what, okay? And then the next one might be a budget or something that we're pulling from, right? So we have these parameters that are lined up in the spreadsheet, and then we're basically pointing our function to these different areas on the spreadsheet to render reporting from it. That make sense? If you take a look at this, this has a function built into it that's going to call pieces of information, including this account over here, to render financial data in a cell reference. That's why I say if you use a function, I'm going to show you that in a second. If you use a function here on the spreadsheet to pull that data, I can, once I understand how to pull the function, once I understand which functions to pull, I can pull any financial data from GP that I want. Okay? And this is on the financial side, the financial reporting side. If we want to pull other module information, we also have the flexibility with most of these tools to get information like sales data or accounts payable data. That's available also. But we're going to speak specifically about the general ledger for right now. Okay? Now I'm going to pull raw financial data in, and we can build financial analysis and drill down capability from there. Joyce, Darren. All right. So here's the magic. I've highlighted the cell down here for 608, 637. What is displaying is that function I'm talking about. Equals year-to-date ending balance, A1, A2, A4, B7. Remember when I said B7, this is B7 down here, where the 001100 is. This is where it's pulling your account from, right? Once it knows where to pull the account from, for which year, for which period, it will now render the result down in the cell reference. And it does it dynamically. So as I change that reference, it re-renders the number for me. So it's quicker than MR. It's quicker than FRX. So I can see real-time changes real fast. If I want to add a column here, I just simply use Excel and drop and drag my column or spread my column or copy across the spreadsheet. And now I have a new reference point for new data sets that are coming in. So you're literally, I'm teaching you how to do equal year-to-date ending balance function, this here in the top. Once I teach you those functions, or our team teaches you those functions, you can pretty much build anything. Does that make sense? It's a little cryptic, but it's like an equal sum, right? It's equal sum on a spreadsheet. When I'm going to add my columns up, I'll still use equal sum on my spreadsheet because I'm summing up values that I'm pulling from the spreadsheet. Okay. The overview is that we have native to Excel. It's easy to learn. It addresses the complex reporting requirements in today's business, like consolidations. So I can pull consolidated databases from multiple databases at the same time, and I can consolidate those together. I can also do eliminating entries with it. So I can do all that within the tool. Okay. I have the ability then to do real-time graphical analysis on financial data, either raw or formatted, and show very nice-looking financial reporting with graphical analysis. I'm doing stuff with income statements of revenue, breaking out total components of revenue in a report, and I'm showing of revenue for our breakdowns within the organization. Okay? Or I want to see a percentage of the revenue, total sales, or I have a unit account like employee headcount that I want to go see average sales per employee. All that's doable now because I'm pulling real financial data with unit accounting or statistical accounting that will render a certain result for me. Okay, we have real-time information. It's integrated in multiple applications outside the GL. We can do extensive charting and graphing, which I've talked about. I can distribute these reports. The total cost of ownership is very inexpensive for what it does. So you literally can get into development and deploying these reports within $2,000 to $3,000 initially for initial investments for Excel-based reporting. So these tools are inexpensive at an entry level, and they get pretty costly as you get down the road. But you're talking about very large organizations who use the BI 360s and so forth. And you can build it for future needs. So as you think it kind of in this area, then you can start building kind of the next thing the business owner would like, or the next thing you provide for business management, right? You can start building that because you have the tool available to do that. I think that's all I have. Okay. Any questions about the tool?
Any description of kind of, you know, if you use it for GL or sales, or where can you go with using that tool?
So the base products usually are general ledger, so the financial side, and then you can add components. You can add the sales side with it, so that you can look at sales data. You can also look at accounts payable, purchasing data. So usually you have those three that will do that. And then keep in mind, because you have the Excel spreadsheet, there's a lot of knowledge in this room. We can take an Excel spreadsheet and we can look at views and SQL queries in the data set that our folks know. The very same thing that Darren and Mark have shown you already. I can take an Excel spreadsheet and literally automatically call that data against that view and have your spreadsheet dynamic. So even without having, you can still have the BizNet financial piece. I can still leverage what Excel will do natively and still go grab your sales data at the same time. You see what I'm saying? So I have the ability within the spreadsheet to do it also. This just makes it very, very easy when you're using these tools on the reporting side, because they've done all the heavy lifting for you. That's why I can get you ramped up so fast. I literally replaced all of my in-house financial reporting in about an hour and a half using Excel. See how fast we could do it. It was just me thinking, oh, and I was doing graphs. I didn't have graphs before. Now I'm doing graphs, right? So it's something that's just very dynamic. Any other questions?
You mentioned being able to publish that through a portal. Describe that a little more in depth in the security behind it.
Yeah. So it depends on, I may have to send this down to Mark or Dave, but in this area you have basically it's a content publisher in BizInsight. So you set that URL up, and then you would then position it or push it to somewhere, and then that security for those folders or that portal or in that SharePoint portal would then be secured by your Active Directory. So it's the same type of thing. So if you can't get into that folder, you can't see that report. Okay? And you can do file-based also. I mean, you could do some file-based security where you have access on that. You're back to some of the limitations of file-based planting of Excel spreadsheets and so forth. You could do that. Yes, sir.
Can that work on a hosted environment as well?
Yes, sir. You can. As long as we can get out to install it and get it set up. BizInsight, this particular tool does. So what Darren showed you, it will sit on top of SSRS. That's where you're going to see a lot more power. Dave and I were actually discussing what we think they're doing with SSRS. We're not sure we have a complete understanding of what they're doing, but I can tell you the engine runs fast. So if I hop off that cell and I recalculate that thing, I don't care if it's a sophisticated calculation or not, it re-renders that data very quickly.
Great. Thanks, Brian, for presenting. Up next is going to be Dave Geary. We're going to turn this over. Now, Dave's going to show us some things that kind of bring all these different pieces together in what could start off as just a GL-based reporting tool in Excel, but expand to a full business intelligence dashboard and budgeting solution.
So first, thanks for everybody for hanging on this long. Since I'm the last guy, most of you are still here, so I'm thankful for that. But I'll be talking about, as Jeff mentioned, BI 360, and BI 360. To go back to Mark's analogy about the cars, is really kind of a Cadillac. They term it the self-service business intelligence suite. And it essentially brings together all these pieces. There is as Brian mentioned, this is really kind of the top end where you want to go for a complete business intelligence product or solution. But from the finance side, there is also entry-level portion, which is nice that they've released now, where you can get in as your FRX or management report or replacement to do your financials fairly inexpensively and use that down the road to actually grow on. So again, back to the cars. BI, basically, we get past the first car, we get past the family sedan, you get every car you ever wanted is what happens here. It covers kind of all the basics. It covers the classics from your financial reports. It covers your budgeting. It gives you dashboards, web portals, data warehousing, mostly module-based. So again, you can actually start off with the financial report tool and then build on top of that later, or you can go right in. We have some larger customers that have done BI solutions that, again, include all the components to this. So their full suite is dashboarding, collaboration, data warehouse, reporting, and planning. And again, all these really work together. You have good workflows in between them, and largely, again, also Excel-based. They actually started with a different product about a decade ago. So they've been in this market probably as long or longer than several of the other tools out there. From an architecture standpoint, on the front end, it is mostly Excel-based, but you can see that, and as we move along, one of the things you'll see, I'm not really going to get into the reporting so much because the reporting actually covers kind of the same thing Brian just discussed. It's Excel-based. It has its own framework over Excel. It uses their own custom functions to make SQL calls to pull the data back. The big power of this, and you kind of see where the payroll, CRM, Dynamics, the other data sources initially roll into the warehouse. Once you get past the financial report tool, the warehouse is really where kind of all the magic for their product happens. Because what this means is it allows you to actually pull in any other type of data that you need to pull in. Whether it is standalone marketing data, whether it's standalone website visits, whether it's ROI on marketing, constant contact sort of stuff. You can actually get that in, provide other BI products besides just your financial reports, or finally, it gives you a place that you can actually tie those things together. A company that I actually worked for before IBG, we used this product. We had a very elaborate in-house budgeting tool, and we needed to layer on a lot more dimensions, basically, to our data and kind of data points that we could get out of EP and our budgeting software, and there was nothing else that could do this. So we were able to pull this all together in the warehouse and give us the Excel reports and dashboards that we needed. So for me, the warehouse is really, when you're running out of ideas with your financial reports and you need to bring in those other components, other operational data, sales data, et cetera, the warehouse is really kind of where the magic hangs together. From the BI suite, you can see most of them are actually start Excel-based. The dashboards are all web. Currently, they're actually done in Silverlight, and they're in the middle of kind of working and transitioning some of those things to even newer technologies. One of the great things with BI 360 is since they are in all these areas, they're constantly developing and doing new releases, and I'll show you some of those in a second. Planning standpoint, they have their own budgeting, built-in forecasting. As Brian alluded to on the other with the web portal for broadcasting, they also do report distribution, emails, portals, etc. So again, BI 360 really is the product that we've seen that's pulling together all of these pieces together. So when you want a true BI solution. This is just an example of a couple of the dashboards and the interface. You can see the image on the left is actually, a lot of you will recognize that kind of an iTunes type thing where you go through, your charts. You actually split through, grab, zoom in. You can drill through. Similar to Business Analyzer, you can actually, get your tool tips with your dollar amounts pop up, sort of thing. These, as we go through, are kind of a few of the key features that are kind of special add-ons related to their product. they've actually built in and they're taking advantage of the drill throughs, so you can not only on your income statement drill into your summaries to see the dollars that roll up to an account right in Excel, but as you continue to drill through, if you're logged into GP, it will actually go right into your GL detail and open the window in GP for the user too. One of the things they come out with, again, is since they're trying to compete on the entry-level financial reporting in Excel, and Jeff, if I remember right, they're around $1,000 actually for the base product for just financial reports.
Yeah, for GL only, it's $9.95. They're really trying to give an alternative in that report.
And again, one of the things to kind of compete in that market that they brought out is this FRX report converter, where like the MR report converter, it actually tends to convert your FRX Access database into Excel-based reports. So as I mentioned, one of the great things is because they have multiple offices and actually a fairly large team, they've had a lot of releases, and they continue to do so. They've released multi-tenant, which is pretty big, some mobile apps. They actually added the collaborative feature, which is the workflow and email routing around budgeting and approvals and those sort of things, and have added more web-based planning here recently. A few of the key ISVs that they're working with already, which some of you may be aware of, like Winsoft and PaperSave, they've already integrated with these products. For example, the multi-tenant with binary stream, so it handles all multi-entity. And just a little background on the company, as business intelligence has been such kind of a key phrase for businesses the last 4 or 5 years, they've seen great growth. As you can see, roughly another 200 or so customers a year for their product. Last year they saw 35% growth, multiple offices around the world. And again, so far it's just been the most robust, well-rounded product when you're looking to get beyond kind of the basic financial.
Well, great. I don't think there's any more questions from our online group unless Mark saw one pop up. But I think at this time we're going to end up shutting down the recording and the webinar.